Welcome to our electronic visit verification stakeholder demonstration of the telephone timesheet system. To meet the federal law requirement, the California Department of Social Services, or CDSS, is implementing electronic visit verification, or EVV. During this demonstration, this video will cover what the telephone timesheet system, or TTS, is, what is needed for TTS registration, services available using TTS, time entry in TTS for providers, approving timesheets in TTS for recipients, and important things to know about EVV, such as providers do not need to check in or check out multiple times per day, and GPS will not be used to track a provider's location. The TTS is an automated telephone system that allows providers and recipients to submit or approve IHSS or WPCS timesheets using a landline or mobile telephone. CDSS has chosen to use its existing TTS to implement EVV. All provider or recipient calls, inbound or outbound, will be available in the 4 threshold languages: English, Spanish, Chinese, and Armenian. There is a TTS help desk that is available to assist providers and recipients to navigate through the TTS. Once EVV is implemented, both providers and recipients will have the ability to self-register for TTS. To register, providers and recipients need to enter some user information, for example, their registration code. A registration code is a 6-digit number that adds additional security by being unique to providers and recipients. This protects the identity of providers and recipients and ensures only they can register for their account. Registration codes will be mailed to providers and recipients prior to implementation. After the registration code, enter either their provider or case number, and finally, their date of birth. Once the system has confirmed who they are, providers and recipients will need to create a passcode. A passcode is a 4-digit number that will be used each time providers or recipients log into the TTS. Passcodes are currently known as a Recipient Authentication Number, or RAN. Today, recipients have to contact the county to register and reset their RAN. Once EVV is implemented, providers and recipients will be able to manage their own passcodes in the TTS. Once registered to use the TTS, providers will be able to set up their passcode, change their passcode, select their recipient to enter time, select their timesheet by program type, either IHSS or WPCS, enter their time worked for the current day or enter their time worked for a previous day, review their timesheet details prior to submitting by both weekly or daily, edit their daily time entries, check their timesheet and payment status for pay periods in the prior 3 months, and submit their finalized timesheets to their recipient for approval. Once registered to use the TTS, recipients will be able to set up their passcode, change their passcode, approve or reject their provider's timesheet by listening to the time reported by their provider, either weekly or daily, and recipients can listen to their approved or rejected actions taken on their provider's timesheets for the previous 3 months. For providers, the ability to enter time using TTS is completely new. When a provider calls TTS, providers will call the TTS to enter time worked, submit timesheets, and check their payment or timesheet status. When the TTS calls the provider will call a provider if a timesheet is rejected by their recipient. Providers will have the ability to review, edit, and resubmit a rejected timesheet during this call. Providers can register and use the TTS regardless of if their recipient or recipients approve their timesheets through the Electronic Services Portal or the TTS. Even though these services are available to providers using the TTS, the Electronic Services Portal website is easier to navigate and a more convenient way to submit timesheets. For recipients, they will have the same options as they currently have when using TTS. When the TTS calls the recipient will call the recipient on the phone when their provider has submitted a timesheet for approval. The TTS will call the recipient during normal business hours. When a recipient calls TTS, if a recipient misses the call, recipients have the ability to call the TTS to review and approve a timesheet their provider has submitted. Recipients can call the TTS at any time during the day or night to review a timesheet. Recipients can register and use the TTS regardless of if their provider or providers submit their timesheets through the Electronic Services Portal or the TTS. Now let's demonstrate how to enter time using TTS for providers. To meet the federal law requirement, the enhancement of the EVV information includes entries for start time, end time, and location. Similar to entering time for electronic timesheets using the online portal, when providers make a daily entry using the TTS, they will have to enter the following information: their hours worked. These are the hours they worked that day. Their minutes worked. These are the minutes they worked that day. Entering hours worked and minutes worked is the same data providers enter and claim on their timesheets today and does not change with the implementation of EVV. We understand that providers provide services to recipients throughout the day, but these services may not be performed consecutively. To keep a provider from having to check in and check out multiple times throughout the day, they will only enter the following information at the end of each day. The start time. This is the time the first service begins on that day. And the end time is the time the last service is completed for that day. Providers will also have to enter the location. GPS is not tracking the provider's location. Since GPS is not tracking location, providers will need to select where the services are provided. The options available to select are Home, Community, or both. Home is if services were provided in the recipient's home. Community is if services were provided outside of the recipient's home. And both is if services were provided both inside the recipient's home and outside the recipient's home during the workday. Just like entering time on the Electronic Services Portal, providers will be responsible for keeping track of their hours worked during a work week, Sunday through Saturday, and the total hours worked during a month. Let's demonstrate how these entries may work, starting with the hours worked entry. To assist us in understanding the flow in our time entry process, we will use a visual aid of an electronic timesheet. In our demonstration, the visual timesheet will populate as we enter our information using the TTS. Also in this demonstration, we will only be entering time for one day for this timesheet. In our demonstration, we have logged into our TTS account and we have selected to enter time on an IHSS timesheet for our recipient, John Oaktree. We are entering time for Sunday, September 16th, 2018. The TTS will prompt you.
Please enter your hours worked as a 2-digit number. For example, if you worked 4 hours, you would enter 04. Enter your hours worked followed by the pound key.
On this day, we worked 9 hours. We need to enter those 9 hours into our telephone. So, on our telephone keypad, we will press 0, 9, and then the pound key. You can see on our timesheet that 09 is now entered in the hours column. After selecting the pound key, we will need to confirm our entry. The TTS will prompt you.
You have entered 9 hours. If this is correct, press 1 or press 2 to edit this entry.
Since our entry is correct, we want to confirm our entry. On our telephone keypad, we will press 1. Next, we will enter our minutes worked for this day. The TTS will prompt you.
Please enter your minutes worked as a 2-digit number. For example, if you worked 30 minutes, you would enter 30. Enter your minutes worked followed by the pound key.
On this day, we worked 30 minutes. We need to enter those 30 minutes into our telephone. So, on our telephone keypad, we will press 3, 0, and then the pound key. You can see on our timesheet that 30 is now entered in the minutes column. After selecting the pound key, we will need to confirm our entry. The TTS will prompt you.
You have entered 30 minutes. If this is correct, press 1 or press 2 to edit this entry.
Since our entry is correct, we want to confirm our entry. On our telephone keypad, we will press 1. Next, we will enter our start time for this day. The TTS will prompt you.
Please enter the time you started services on September 16, 2018 as a 4-digit number. The entry should be in a 12-hour time format. For example, if you started performing services at 9:15, you should enter 0915. Please enter your start time followed by the pound key.
On this day, our start time is 8 a.m. We need to enter 8 o'clock into our telephone. So, on our telephone keypad, we will press 0, 8, 0, 0, and then the pound key. You can see on our timesheet that 8 o'clock is now entered for the start time. After selecting the pound key, we will need to confirm our entry. The TTS will prompt you.
You have entered 0800. If this is correct, press 1 or press 2 to edit this entry.
Since our entry is correct, we want to confirm our entry. On our telephone keypad, we will press 1. Next, we will enter whether our start time is for the AM or PM for this day. The TTS will prompt you.
For the start time, press 1 if the service was started in the AM. Press 2 if the service was started in the PM.
On this day, our start time is in the AM. Since our entry is for the AM, on our telephone keypad, we will press 1. You can see on our timesheet that AM is now entered for the start time. After selecting our start time was in the AM, we will need to confirm our entire start time entry. The TTS will prompt you.
You started performing services at 8 a.m. If this is correct, press 1. If this is not correct, press 2.
Since our entry is correct, we want to confirm our entry. On our telephone keypad, we will press 1. Next, we will enter our end time for this day. The TTS will prompt you.
Please enter the time you completed services on September 16, 2018 as a 4-digit number. The entry should be in a 12-hour format. For example, if you finished performing services at 10 o'clock, you should enter 1, 0, 0, 0. Please enter your end time followed by the pound key.
On this day, our end time is 6 p.m. We need to enter 6 o'clock into our telephone. So, on our telephone keypad, we will press 0, 6, 0, 0, and then the pound key. You can see on our timesheet that 6 o'clock is now entered for the end time. After selecting the pound key, we will need to confirm our entry. The TTS will prompt you.
You have entered 0, 6, 0, 0. If this is correct, press 1 or press 2 to edit this entry.
Since our entry is correct, we want to confirm our entry. On our telephone keypad, we will press 1. Next, we will enter whether our end time is for the AM or PM for this day. The TTS will prompt you.
For the end time, press 1 if the service was finished in the AM. Press 2 if the service was finished in the PM.
On this day, our end time is in the PM. Since our entry is for the PM, on our telephone keypad, we will press 2. You can see on our timesheet that PM is now entered for the end time. After selecting our end time was in the PM, we will need to confirm our entire end time entry. The TTS will prompt you.
You finished performing services at 6 p.m. If this is correct, press 1. If this is not correct, press 2.
Since our entry is correct, we want to confirm our entry. On our telephone keypad, we will press 1. For those providers whose recipients require services on and off throughout the day, entering 12 a.m. for the start time and 11:59 p.m. for the end time is an acceptable way to enter this time. Next, we will enter our location for services performed for this day. The TTS will prompt you.
Please choose the location where services were performed on September 16, 2018. Press 1 for home, press 2 for community, press 3 for both.
On this day, our location is home. Since our entry is for home, on our telephone keypad, we will press 1. You can see on our timesheet that home is now entered for the location. After selecting home, we will need to confirm our entry. The TTS will prompt you.
You have selected home as the location where services were performed. If this is correct, press 1 or press 2 to edit this entry.
Since our entry is correct, we want to confirm our entry. On our telephone keypad, we will press 1. Next, we will need to confirm our entire daily entry. The TTS will prompt you.
For September 16, 2018, you have entered 9 hours and 30 minutes for the services provided to John Oaktree for the IHSS program. The start time for services was 8 a.m., the end time of services was 6 p.m., and the location where the services were performed was selected as home. To save this entry, press 1. If you do not want to save this entry, press 2.
Since our entry is correct, we want to confirm our entry. On our telephone keypad, we will press 1. After saving our daily entry, we will be prompted for whether we want to submit the timesheet to our recipient for review. The TTS will prompt you.
Your entry has been saved. If this is your last entry for this timesheet and you would like to submit this for recipient review, press 1.
For our demonstration, this is our last daily entry for our timesheet, so we are ready to submit it to our recipient. To do this, on our telephone keypad, we will press 1. If providers do not submit their timesheet for recipient review, they will be returned to the Timesheet Activity menu and can enter time for other days in the pay period. Although providers can enter time for multiple days worked during a pay period during one phone call, they are encouraged to enter their time worked on a daily basis. This practice will improve convenience and accuracy. When a provider submits a timesheet for recipient review, the recipient will receive a phone call from TTS informing them that they have a timesheet to review. Once logged in, recipients will have the following options to choose from when reviewing and taking action on a timesheet. Recipients can choose what they hear when reviewing a timesheet. Recipients can choose to review the weekly totals for hours claimed or to hear the daily hours claimed. Recipients have the following options when taking action on a timesheet: to approve the timesheet or to reject the timesheet and return it to their provider. Now, let's look at a demonstration of the TTS timesheet for recipients to approve. Our recipient wants to review the timesheet by daily hours claimed. The TTS will prompt the recipient.
Press 1 to review the weekly totals for hours claimed. Press 2 to hear the daily hours claimed. Press 3 to approve this timesheet. Press 4 to reject this timesheet and return it to your provider.
Since the recipient wants to review the timesheet by daily hours claimed on their telephone keypad, they will press 2. Like our demonstration of provider time entry, to assist in understanding the flow in the review process, we will use a visual aid of an electronic timesheet. In our demonstration, the visual timesheet will highlight the corresponding fields as the TTS goes over the information. The TTS will prompt the recipient.
At any time during the daily review, press 8 to return to the Review Options menu. For September 16, 2018, 9 hours and 30 minutes have been claimed. The start time for services was 8 a.m. The end time of services was 6 p.m. And the location where the services were performed was home.
If there are more days remaining on the timesheet to review, the TTS will move on to the next day and prompt the recipient with the entry. The TTS will repeat this process until all days on the timesheet have been reviewed. But remember, in this demonstration, we will only be reviewing time entry for one day for this timesheet. So, the daily timesheet review is complete. The TTS will prompt the recipient.
Daily timesheet review is complete. Press 1 to approve this timesheet. Press 2 to reject this timesheet.
Since the entry is correct, the recipient chooses to confirm the entry. On their telephone keypad, they will press 1. After a timesheet is approved, providers and recipients will have the ability to request an approved timesheet be printed and mailed to them for those who want to keep paper records. The TTS will prompt providers and recipients if they make an error while using the system. For example, a provider or recipient enters their passcode number while logging into the TTS, and they enter a passcode that is less than 4 digits. The TTS will say,
"Your entry was not 4 digits. Your passcode should be 4 digits. Please enter your 4-digit passcode followed by the pound key."
Another example. A provider wants to enter 3 hours and 30 minutes worked for a day, but when prompted to enter their hours worked, the provider enters 330. The TTS will say,
"The entry cannot be greater than 24 hours. The hours worked must be entered as a 2-digit number. For example, if you worked 4 hours, you would enter 04. Enter your hours worked followed by the pound key."
Providers will also receive a helpful message warning them if their time entered may cause a timesheet violation. Here are some important things to know about EVV. No multiple check-ins and check-outs during the day. Providers will have the flexibility to enter time as they choose. And no GPS. EVV does not change how services are performed. EVV does not change the number of hours a recipient receives. Providers get paid faster because the timesheet submission and timesheet approval process is done electronically. Providers can get paid even faster if they have direct deposit. This concludes our electronic visit verification stakeholder demonstration of the telephone timesheet system. Additional and current information regarding EVV can be found at the highlighted website address displayed below. The pilot for electronic visit verification begins in July of 2019.